All right, what's up, MYB? Champion on the Minding Your Business podcast. This is episode number 219, Entrepreneurship, Real Estate, Trending News. Excuse me. There's no business like minding your own. Man, jumping on here. It's been a wild day already. I hope this finds you well. Subscribe to the podcast, 5-star, wherever you get your pods. Helps us continue to grow the MYB community. And just getting this out to some people. At the same time while I'm trying to start my show, they asking about, hey, when you gonna start? When you gonna start? We're doing it now. Calm down. You know, you got to tell people to calm down a little bit. Hope you're doing well. Hope this finds you in good spirits and in good health. Today being Thursday, November the 12th of 2020. We're already almost halfway through November. Man, it's crazy. It is crazy. And what's been crazier is, you know, I go to Vegas, right? And I don't want our guests to hear this because I don't want the good pastor to hear me about going to Vegas now.
Nigga, please go ahead and get your party started, man. Let's talk for real.
But you know what's funny is it take them a damn week or more to count votes in Nevada. But if I go and lose on the blackjack table, it don't take them but a minute to get my money. It'll take them about a minute, Doc, to get my money now. But now it take them a week to count my vote, but then they can't. It don't take them that long to get my money.
That's hilarious.
So I don't know what's going on with Nevada, man. But we gonna get into some things today, man. I'm excited. Now, listen, you know, I could probably take the rest of this podcast introducing this man, and if I did that, y'all be mad because y'all probably be tuning out. Like, man, is he gonna stop talking about this dude? I could, you know, like I said, I could take a lot of time introducing him. But I just want to say this: Google him. But no, this is a tremendous leader, not just in this Memphis community, man, but even, you know, going beyond that. In my travels, even just in business, man, I've ran into this man, this leader, on several times just in airports. You know what I mean? I've been traveling and run into him where he's coming from putting in work and then coming back to Memphis, putting in even more work. Who I'm talking about is Dr. Earle Fisher, who's the senior pastor of Abyssinian Missionary Baptist Church right here in Memphis. And then he's the founder of Up the Vote 901. And that's just a small snippet of the things that he's working on. You know, I first met Dr. Fisher, man, at one of my buildings downtown. I had a little co-working spot and he spoke at an event there, man, and was just powerful, man. I had not had a chance, you know, you in the city, you hear about people and stuff, man, but you know, getting a chance to hear him speak, man, I love what he had to say. I loved his passion about it. And, you know, there are things that he's done that have been, you know, public, that people are aware of, and probably even more of a slew of things that he's done and help engage that have helped people that, you know, like we say in sports, don't always show on the scoreboard. And, you know, so it's just tremendous, man. I'm honored to have him join me on the podcast and just take a little bit of time with this MYB. So let's give a welcome to Dr. Fisher, man. Appreciate you, Doc, man. Thank you for jumping on.
Man, the pleasure is mine. And I'm going to take you on the road with me to do introductions when people want me to speak somewhere. And I need you to put that in print so I can send it to my wife so that Denise would know what time it is. You know what I'm saying? Where she tell me, take out the trash. And be like, take out the trash? Did you hear what Champ Ron said about me? Take out the trash.
Right.
No, thanks, man. And it's an honor and a joy to be with you, man, to chop it up this morning. I don't know how long your podcast usually lasts, but I got as much time as you want to take. And I need everybody who's tuned in to know, and everybody who was watching can see, you know, Champ Ron messed me up because he hit me with the 1995 Notorious B.I.G. Coogee sweater.
Baby.
You know what I'm saying? So I would just mail him the dark black shades, you know what I'm saying, with the gold emblem on the sides.
Yeah.
So he could go ahead and, you know, do real retro today.
Right. No doubt about it.
Thanks for this, man. I appreciate it and looking forward to chopping it up with you. And salute to you for doing 219 of these episodes, man. What took you so long to ask me? No, I'm just.
You know what? That's a great question, too, man. That's definitely a great question. No, it's a real question. That's a real question. No doubt about it.
And all of the stuff that you're doing in the city and around the country, too.
Yep, no doubt about it. I appreciate that, Doc. And man, let's jump in, man. For I told everybody to Google you, and so I'm sure 100 people just went and just started Googling your name, and and pulled it up, man. But tell us, for those that aren't familiar with you, man, just your background, how you kind of got to where you are. One thing we always try to do on the podcast, man, is I know the term goes around about giving flowers. I'm not running around here giving flowers. I just show respect. You know what I mean? And you've got a distinct background, man. Personally and professionally, and I think it'll inspire those that are listening, man. So can you share that with us?
Sure, man. Native of Benton Harbor, Michigan, one of the most impoverished cities in the country. Grew up, born in 78, so grew up there in the 80s. Was a teenager in the 90s in high school, graduated from Benton Harbor High School in 1996. Actually, and usually in like the condensed version of my bio, I don't share this, but I think it's important, especially in light of what you just said. Most folks don't know. So my first year out of high school, I barely graduated high school. And if my sister Tierney tells it, so I got one older sister, her name is Tierney. She's 2 years older than me. So I'm Claudia's son. Tierney's baby brother or little brother, even though I'm taller than her, right?
Right.
I'm Jalen's pops. I'm Denise's hubby, right? That's the landscape of it. But if my sister Tierney was to tell the story, she said the only reason I graduated high school on time is because she begged one of my social studies teachers to give me a C.
Right.
So my first year out of high school, I actually went to Kalamazoo Valley Community College and tried to walk on the basketball team, got cut and flunked out. Came back home to Benton Harbor, walked on the Lake Michigan College basketball team, and then ended up becoming ineligible because my grades wasn't right.
Yeah.
And so I had to work back to get back in. Ended up becoming a co-captain, the captain of the team, and then end up getting a basketball scholarship to Lemoyne. And that's what brought me to Memphis. So I came to Memphis in 1999, basketball scholarship to Lemoyne, graduated from Lemoyne in 2003. My basketball stats are out there too. They're documented for the record.
Right.
So,
there you go. Okay. Yeah.
I'm just talking about what I'm talking
about. The numbers are the numbers. Right.
yeah. Right. And then in the fall of 2004, because I had accepted my call to ministry in January 2003, preached my first sermon in August 2003. And my pastor at the time, I accepted my call under Frank Anthony Thomas at Mississippi Boulevard Christian Church. And he recommended that I go to seminary. So I started Memphis Theological Seminary fall 2004. Ended up getting on staff at Mississippi Boulevard in 2005. I was there from 2005 to 2007. Finished up seminary, graduated from seminary, started teaching religious studies at Lemoyne, started a campus ministry. Then ended up becoming like a church plant. Then ended up getting called to Abyssinian in 2011. Started teaching at Rose College in the religious studies department in fall of 2011. Started the PhD program at the University of Memphis in 2014. Graduated from there with my PhD in communication in 2018. Started up the Vote 901 in the fall of 2017. But the seeds of it were planted after the election in 2016, because I was simply tired of seeing low turnout elections, knowing that certain candidates are more likely to be elected if the turnout is low, and other candidates are more likely to be elected if turnout is high, and just was tired of the misrepresentation, disenfranchisement, lack of engagement, political manipulation and exploitation. And I just wanted some people, some everyday people who were interested in, motivated to make something happen, to kind of come together and see how we could do something on the local level as it relates to just getting more people political information, representation. And now it's been an explicit conversation about political power. And I've come to realize that a lot of my journey has been about, what it takes to give more power to more people, what it really takes to give Black folks the political power and consciousness and the religious and theological consciousness that they need to thrive in a white supremacist environment and country and a culture. So that's been basically it in a nutshell, man. But glad to, have done some of the work that I've been able to do. Grateful for the support of, wife, family, church, community. I didn't have nothing, man. I did not come to Memphis for all this, bro.
Right.
I just didn't. I came to hoop and do some extracurricular activities. You know what I'm saying? I didn't come here for this, but man, grounded in the Black faith tradition, because my mother is somebody who I say is a quintessential Christian ethicist with no formal theological training. She just like, man, what it means to be a Christian in the sense of loving people and doing right by folks and standing up for what's right. Man, my mother, you know what I'm saying, is the model for that. Like, can't nobody that I know of, and I know thousands of people all over the country, nobody can legitimately say anything bad or negative about my mama. And I ain't saying that just because she's my mom. You know, some of us got mothers who, you know, got trifling backgrounds or histories or just complex. Like my mama, Claudia Mayfield, nobody, bro. Like she is like the standard for what it means. She's like the standard of ethics. I ain't never known her to cheat nobody, beat nobody, none of that stuff. So, you know, growing up in the house that I grew up in and, you know, being reared in, you know, the church tradition, you know, some of that stuff just kind of sort of, as the scriptures say, you know, you train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they're older, they don't depart from it. So, although I didn't have none of this stuff in mind, man, the more that I look back over my life and kind of sort of piece together the details, I realize how, you know, the hand of God has been, you know, behind the scenes, weaving and orchestrating the tapestry of my life.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, you know, Doc, when you transition from, you know, you come from Benton, you know, you get to Memphis.
Benton Harbor. Now you got to make that clear. And look, I need y'all Negroes to know. That's the southwest
Ben Harbor.
That's the Benton Harbor, right? We say Ben Harbor. I mean, there's but that's 90 miles east of Chicago. So I'm gonna tell you some of the grinds I geared. And you be like, I'm from Benton Harbor. Where's that? Michigan. Oh, you from Detroit? No, nigga, I'm from Benton Harbor. Okay. Like if anybody,
that's what we think all black folk in Michigan, they from Detroit.
Right. Just like they think everybody from Tennessee is from Memphis, right?
Yeah, you're from Memphis, right.
No, for somebody from Jackson, right? Or somebody from, you know, a place like that, be like, nah, you know.
Yeah,
so if anybody is watching this from Benton Harbor right now, they are hollering laughing because they know I'm right about it.
Right.
Yeah, but go ahead. You talking about the transition from Benton Harbor to the South?
Yeah, so the transition to the South, and like you say, you know, one of the things that, you know, intrigues me with you when you explain your background, Doc, is, you know, you had, you know, like I say, you trying to get your grades and stuff together, you hooping, you know, that's just about every black male's kind of deal, you know, in this country to some extent. You know, what was it within you?
You slinging crack rocker, you got a wicked jump shot.
Right. Yeah, that's our biggie theme here today. Yeah. So, man, what was it? There had to have been something innate within you to make that transition, leave your hometown, come all the way 1,000 miles down south. You like say, not with the intent to do what you're doing today, you know, and what you've done over the years. You know, I'm interested in, man, what was it within you that compelled you, that drove you to come down here and find success? You know what I mean? Not only in a different state, but like you say, in a complete different culture. Because I've traveled through Michigan, Doc. Now I know,
but Benton Harbor ain't completely different, right? Because when you start talking about the Great Migration, many of the black folks that are in the North got roots in the South, right? So my family actually originates in Grenada, Mississippi. That's where my maternal grandmother and grandfather are together, right?
Gotcha.
But having said that, I think, you know, you would have to know more about Benton Harbor to know, you know, kind of the DNA. And wanting to, I don't know anybody who doesn't want to be successful. And so when I wanted to be able to, my mother used to tell me, you know, you play basketball, don't let basketball play you. And knowing that basketball was the ticket out the hood or out of Benton Harbor, right? And Benton Harbor is all hood and highway for folks who just don't know, it just is. So making to get out of that environment and be able to explore more opportunities, I need to utilize basketball. Well, you can't play basketball if you ain't handling your business in the classroom. And it was never about my intellectual capacity, like is the case with most African-American males. It was about my drive, and it was about my ability to be able to focus and connect what was happening in the classroom to what I wanted to happen out in the world. So by the time I flunk out, and I realized I got to go back to Benton Harbor, which was a bad thing, right? It's like, it's one thing to go home as like the brother who is stunting because you out of you in school, and now you come home, you like to style like, yeah, you know, he doing this thing, he in school, right? It's another thing when you back at home because you done flunked out of school.
Mm.
So then I walk on to the team, and then when I end up not getting my grades together, I'm like, look, nigga, if you don't get this part straight, ain't nothing else. You ain't gonna be able to do the other stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of my homeboys, you know, I can call a litany list of folks who came out of Benton Harbor, played Division I basketball, Division II basketball, you know, traveled the country, like, you know, got an education and done some great things.
Yeah.
I wanted to be in that number. And I couldn't be in that number if I didn't handle the business in the classroom.
Right.
And so I started to shift gears and get focused. Now I end up in Memphis because there's a scout that is working the junior college circuit in our area, and he's sending people from Michigan down to the SIAC, with Lemoyne, Lane College, Kentucky State, Tuskegee. Who else was in the conference at the time? Because they expanded the conference.
Yeah, they expanded it out. So
yeah, but the whole AUC, so Morehouse, Clark, you know, all of them, right? And so he's sending them down there. He comes and checks out one of my games. He sends word to Jerry Johnson and at Lemoyne on, and based upon this guy's word, Coach Johnson calls me and offers me a scholarship over the phone on my voicemail. Right, had never seen me play, but at the word of this brother, he made that move. He was the only one offering me a full scholarship because everybody else felt like I was a academic risk. So they didn't really want to do that. So I had to come to the South, right? And I thought it was lit. And then one of my a guy who was on another team in the same conference that I played against, brother from South Bend, Indiana, Deshaun Johnson, he was coming to Lemoyne too. So we was like, oh, it's cool. And then it's just like a bunch of us had, you know, kind of sort of made a move in that vein. And so that gave me an opportunity to feel like I had some value and some hope. But I was more committed then to the academics of it. Going to the HBCU, this is why I tell people all the time, you cannot undervalue the impact of an HBCU education. Because when you get to Lemoyne, all of a sudden, you know, not that I had, because Benton Harbor is 95% black as it is, but by the time you get to the college arena, you know, that's just not the case. So now I'm at a HBCU where certain values of culture and heritage is being instilled in ways that is just not instilled prior to me coming there. And so that's kind of sort of when the gears started to shift, you know. So there was always this get it out the mud mentality, and it was always this back up against the wall, but I'm gonna fight back and make something of myself type of impulse and ethic. But it didn't get polished until I came to Memphis.
Right. Absolutely, man. And that polished piece of it too, man, I want to speak about, because, you know, a lot of brothers, you know, in that same situation end up making, you know, it sometimes only takes one bad choice, right? You know, like it don't take much, you know what I mean? Like we always say, man, to get in the system, it take a whole lot to get out of it. Don't take much to get in. Right. And, you know, and we go get to that, you know, systems and stuff here in just a little bit. What's up, Moses? I see you jumping on there, man. What Moses Shorter got going on, man? That brother. And Upshaw, Sam Upshaw, these brothers jumping in, man.
Sam can tell you about the Lemoyne days.
Oh,
Sam can tell you for sure. That was one of my classmates at Lemoyne, man. And
yeah,
both
he
of us,
LOC
like,
for sure.
Yeah, both of us like look at each other now, like, hey, you know, God has brought us from a mighty long way.
I knew you was going that way, man, because, you know, Upshaw, South Memphis for real, man. So no doubt about it. But, you know, that I guess, you know, I'm always curious, man, from your perspective, because I think it'll help brothers, man, that are just out here that may even listen to this, is that, you know, you got that polish, you know what I mean? And you had enough, I guess, vision to be able to, you know, to get in and kind of see where your opportunities were. And like you said, you leverage basketball, you know, as that tool, you know, to get there, but you still had to be willing, right? You still had to be willing to, you know, to listen. You had to be willing to kind of find your, you know, I don't like to say lane, but you had to kind of find your, you know, your groove, kind of, you get your momentum. And now I'm big on confidence. I think, you know, a lot of brothers lack confidence in, you know, in something positive. And, you know, once you don't have that confidence, man, there's all kind of different ways you can go, man. So, you know, what kind of helped you as you got to Lemoyne? You know, what was that groove that you found? Was it like in a class, like with a professor, or was it just like what you learned on the court that kind of
I'm gonna tie a couple things into that, especially that last part. I mean, I was taught coming up by my freshman basketball coach, Lou Harvey, that basketball is life. Basketball teaches you a lot about life, and it does.
No doubt.
And which is why usually, because really what I want to transition into that you had alluded to earlier is the realities of systems. And I'm not sure that black men or black folks in general lack confidence outside of the fact that we are socially engineered in an environment that's anti-black.
Yes.
So that kind of sort of looms over you, and it's easy to become apathetic because, you know, as you said earlier, one wrong move, you know what I'm saying? It part of the reason I was able to accomplish whatever I've accomplished is because God has been extremely kind to me.
Yeah.
Despite the heinous realities of this evil and unjust system that we live in.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm defective equipment in this system. You know, I was mismanufactured. I'm doing stuff I ain't supposed to do, according to the system. And so, you know, a lot of times, this is why I work so hard to try to adjust the system. I don't buy into my black exceptionalism. It's a whole lot of folks as smart as I am, as committed as I am, as compassionate as I am, as creative as I am. But one wrong, they ran a traffic light. You know what I'm saying? Or they, you know, the times I got pulled over while I was drinking and driving, the cop didn't search the car. You know, I didn't smoke weed, so it wasn't no weed smell in the car. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
All of those little tropes, right? This is not to say that the institutions like Lemoyne or the sport like basketball or the mentors that I've had over the years have not poured into me. This is saying that you can have all of that, and the probability of you becoming Champ Ron Brooks or me becoming who I've become is still unlikely. And that's why we have to put more effort and onus on restructuring and reforming this system so that it ain't like, ooh, look at him, you know, wow, you know, because that's crazy. Now, another thing that did, I think, mature me in ways that I had not been mature before, and this happens because I'm at Lemoyne, and now I'm exposed to people who have, you know, who come from all walks of Black life that present themselves in ways that I had not really been exposed to, or had not been exposed to at the scale and volume. Like, oh, everybody does this, you know, or just about everybody. And you know, people gonna think I'm playing. And let me say it this way: I'm sure that this happens for some people who have pledged other fraternities too, but I pledged Alpha. And you know, the principles of manhood and you know, scholarship, manly deeds, you know, love for all humanity, you know, these things started to register with me in ways that they hadn't done when I was in Benton Harbor. Not that I didn't see folks in suits, but most of the niggas I seen, you know, was rocking different styles. Certain things were in, certain things were out. And so even if you want to do those types of things, you know, you'll be outcasted in a way that for most of us in our teenage years, don't nobody want to be outcast.
Exactly. You want to be included.
You might want to have your space to be alone, you know, for those who are more introverted. And I'm more of like an ambivert. So I got a lot of introverted a lot of extroverted characteristics. Yeah. But also we got some introverted tendencies too.
Okay.
But nobody really wants to be, I don't think anybody really wants to be outcast. Even if you want your space, you don't want to be outcast. And so coming to a HBCU and seeing folks, you know, switch up their style, you know, depending upon the event or the occasion, I was like, oh, you can do this. And hey, it's okay to be smart. Like, oh, okay. You know, and so some of the stuff started to click then, and I was able to connect some dots, mature in some ways, and polish some of that stuff that was, you know, I was a diamond in the rough in Benton Harbor. You know what I'm saying? Right. You get to the HBCU and you get to a place like Memphis and you get connected to your history, your heritage, and your culture, and you seeing this beautiful collage of Black art, black life, black intelligence, black perspective, black, hey, we can do something now, so I feel like I really, how do I usually say? I said like Benton Harbor Benton Harbor raised me, but Memphis made me.
Dig that. Yeah, definitely dig that. Doc, why do you think, because you have always been, as I've known you and I've observed you and been in rooms and heard you speak, that you have always been unapologetically black, right? I can't, and this is me talking now. I can't say the same for all pastors.
Now you can't say the same for most.
Yeah. So, and I'm not gonna get into any names and all that kind of stuff, but I've been involved in church where, I've seen some things behind the curtain. Let me tell you that wasn't all as kosher as maybe it should have been with some of these Negroes that, get up and start doing things, right? Whether it's in the church or outside the church. What bonds you? Yeah, I don't want to use that term bond, but what helps keep you in that mode of being able to promote it, because here's the thing, like, and I see this on social media, and I see this from someone that worked in the banking industry for 17 years, right? So many people are so afraid. Now, you've had things, 2020's opened the door for people to be a little bit more audacious in their in their blackness, right? Because of some of the unfortunate events and things that have taken place. But one of the things that's always kind of bothered me, and this hurt me in my banking career, quite frankly, and it goes to your point on systems and things like that. I got in thinking I was gonna climb the ladder, Doc. Right? These folks love me, man. Even coming out the mound, I'm like, man, these folks, look at this, man. They invite me to stuff, and I learned pretty quickly that I'm still a nigga. You know what I mean? When I walk in, I'm still, and I always was. And, I even saw it demonstrated in my last role where, I'm in the C-suite. All right. Thinking, okay, it's just sweet. And I'm moving. You know what I'm saying? I'm moving. Right. I got a name. Folks got, they putting titles before my name and after my name and all that. Then when you start shining, they get in the board meetings and start bigging you up a little bit and all that. The vibe changed, right? But my question to you, Doc, is one, what keeps you that even when it may bring tension towards your way or malice towards your way or things like that, where it's easy for a lot of Black folks to try to sit back and play and avoid it. It's easy to, like a lot of people don't like when I say this on social media, but a lot of folks go, they go on their job, they block all the white folks, right? And then talk, big bad black after they
on social media.
After they block
you
Abby
super
and
black
Jake.
on social media, but in the boardrooms you vanilla as hell, right?
Well, and they only do it on social media after they block Abby and Jake, right? You know what I mean? They go through and find all their coworkers and all the bosses and stuff, go block them all, and then only post friends only, and then talk big and bad.
So I want to be.
What allows you to do that?
Yeah, I want to try to be fair to my evolution. I don't think anybody just kind of sort of shows up on the scene with the level of pro-blackness or Afrocentricity that I try to embrace. Like, so I mean, these are things that I've learned over the years that have reinforced some stuff, right? Like, so when you learn that you Black, you got two choices: either you gonna embrace it or you gonna try to denounce it. And I chose to embrace it, at a real young age, because I just thought it was a beautiful thing, and I learned something about Black history, and it was like, hey, this is okay. And just the ultimate, the bare bones realities of justice. If you care anything about justice, okay, then something should compel you to stand with those who are underprivileged, who are on the margins, and not just through your basic history of the world over the last 500 years. Who would that be? Okay,
exactly.
But not only do I move into this from a social standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint, when I accept my call to ministry in 2003, I got my niggas, my friends from Benton Harbor, Michigan in my mind. And so like I'm not going to embrace some alter ego to be a preacher and a pastor.
Yeah.
No, I need to be 100 when I go back to the crib.
Yeah.
So that they're gonna be like, who is this nigga here? Right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because if part of what ministry is supposed to do is reach the people who haven't been reached. I knew my guys hadn't been reached because I wouldn't reach like that. So I wanted to be able to provide for them a model of, like you could be Christian and you could be a person of faith in this. So I had that in mind, and that kind of keeps me grounded. Not to mention, man, I got friends from 30, 40 years that I talk to, and most of my friends ain't clergy folk. I got clergy folks who are my friends, my homies, my colleagues who I chop it up with regularly. I got a countless number of mentors who are pastors, preachers, black theologians, all of that. But my longest tenure in friendship are from people who wouldn't consider themselves to be overly religious at all, and so that stuff keeps you grounded in a way that when you enter into some of these spaces, it would be disingenuous, it would be inauthentic, and ultimately that will hurt you in the long run, because if people see you as somebody who is a chameleon and you just change your stripes depending on what room they're in, after a while that's going to hinder your ability to say what you need to say and do what you need to do. The last thing I'll say about this is, and again, from a spiritual standpoint or from a religious standpoint, and I'll describe what I mean by distinctions between that. When I get to seminary, this is 2004. So 2005 and 6, I started learning about Black liberation theology. I'm like, oh, this is like a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, so wait a minute. You ain't got construct, like it's a whole field of scholarship about this. It's a whole body of work. Folks been doing this type of work since the 60s. Oh, okay. This makes sense not only to my mind, but to my lived experience. And so it gave me an arsenal to draw from as I studied like the Black Power movement, the Civil Rights movement, Black Freedom movement historically. I'm like, oh, and then the more you study history, the more you realize this stuff is happening right now.
Right. Exactly.
So what you gonna do? How you gonna move? One of the things that was most fascinating for me. So I get to Abyssinian in 2011. And so I thought, number one, if anybody know anything about Abyssinian Baptist Church in Memphis is named after the historical Abyssinian Baptist Church in Harlem, New York, where Adam Clayton Powell Sr., Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Well, Pastor, y'all know anything about that, right? Y'all should. If y'all don't, Google it, friend. But it was founded by Ethiopian merchants who were discriminated against at First Baptist Church in New York because it was segregated. And so they were like, no, we're going to, F y'all, we'll build our own. Right. And so standing in that legacy, I wanted to make sure I brought Black liberation theology to Abyssinian in Memphis. And so I'll be teaching stuff, that I would think I would be, not pulling out of thin air, but, just like, I don't know if anybody's ever done it. And so I had a mentor when I was teaching at Rhodes. I was putting a class together called Gangster Theology, where I was going to discuss with the students what it means to see God and the world from the underworld perspective or from the underside. Right. And so I asked my mentors, Dr. Randall Bailey, who was out of ITC in Atlanta. I was like, hey, here go the concept for my class. What do you think would be some good books? He told me to read this book by a guy named William Jones called Is God a White Racist? And so in this book, he is challenging some of the forerunners for Black liberation theology, James Cone, J.D. Otis Roberts, Joseph, I can't think of Joseph's last name, but Dwight Hopkins. And then I stumble up on this guy named Albert Clegg Jr. And as I'm reading about him, I'm like, who is this guy? And why didn't I hear about him when I was in seminary? And I said that last week. Man, I preached that 2 months ago. You know what I'm saying? And so it gave me an anchor, like, as much as people gonna call you radical and crazy or whatever, it's a history to this. It's an ancestral lineage to this. And the reason so many people dismiss it is because they know it's an efficacy or an effectiveness to this. They know it really does help raise Black consciousness and help cultivate Black power in a way that creates more equitable societies. And since people don't want that, and since 95% of Black Christians embrace white evangelicalism, means for them, their God is white, whether they admit it or not, then you ultimately end up living into a type of white evangelical politic, which means it's okay if Trump is a little bit racist. It's
Right.
okay if so and so and them that because Negroes don't know how to act. If they were acting, but then you get into all of this moralism and stuff that's deceptive. So yeah, that's kind of how I evolved into some of this and where now my anchors are. So I live at the intersection now of social justice, spirituality, and scholarship, or what Dr. Andre Johnson would call rhetoric, race, and religion.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, I was laughing, chuckling with that because getting into the presidential election piece. All right. I wanted to discuss that with you. And so as we're talking about systems, I mean, oh boy, what a system we got here in America for how we elect our president. So this past Saturday, Joe Biden is announced as the winner of the U.S. presidential election. So he is the president-elect. Kamala Harris, who is now the first woman of African-American descent, as well as the first female to be elected or be the president or vice president-elect and soon to be elected as vice president of the United States. And then you have the 45th president, Donald J. Trump, who's out there right now. What were just your overall thoughts as you heard the announcement this past Saturday? What kind of went through your mind, Doc, as you hear that?
So last week was a whirlwind insofar as leading up to Election Day, we were planning, Up to Vote 901 was planning our Election Day block party in South Memphis, 38106 at my auntie Gina Stewart's, I call her auntie affectionately, Gina Stewart's church, Christ Missionary Baptist Church, which is a polling location that had low turnout in the last several elections, and we wanted to try to increase turnout at that precinct in particular. So we were planning for that all Monday. And on Tuesday, we do the block party, but I'd also committed to doing something with Hattie Lou Theater. Ekendayu Deli, who's the founder of Hattie Lou Theater, which for those who don't know is a Black-owned arts and theater organization in Memphis. I put together a series of segments from the play that they were doing, God's Trombones, which was written by, I want to say, Paul Dunbar, Langston Hughes. I can't think of exactly right now, but God's Trombones, and it had a series of basically sermons that had been heard or constructed in the middle of the 20th century, so that it could give people a glimpse of what's happening in Black churches. And the way Eck had put it together, he wanted several preachers in the area to offer up these responses to the different sermons, and they were doing it every week starting in late October. I just so happened to get the one that was airing on Election Day, and the sermon was "Let My People Go." From that. So I had to lead and preach that or do what I call a sermonic reflection on that. And part of what I was saying was that we didn't know how the election would turn out. This and like that morning is coming, but midnight is actually the first minute of the morning, and it's still dark as hell.
Right, no doubt.
And so, although morning is coming, and I started out talking about like Ronald Reagan's whole "It's Morning in America" thing from the 80s. And I was like, it's interesting morning. So many Black folks will say morning, mourning. And I use that dichotomy and talk about it. And so by the time I get home, I'm already exhausted and I'm watching the election results, but I had already been trying to consult with God about what I needed to preach for Abyssinian that Sunday. And I felt like I was supposed to preach Isaiah chapter 40, verses 28 through 31. And for those who may be familiar with that, the most recognizable section of that passage is, and they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. So I'm sitting with that night. I'm watching the election results come in, emotional roller coaster, up and down, up and down. And then I'm like, you know what? They ain't gonna call it tonight. I'm going to sleep.
Right. Yeah.
I wake up the next day, emotional roller coaster, because they still, and then now the votes are starting to come in, the absentee stuff starting to get counted. And I'm like, hey, we need. Then they called Wisconsin. I said, okay.
Yeah.
Then they called my home state, Michigan. I threw my hands up. Hey.
Yeah. Of all the states now. Because Michigan tends to go back and forth, right? I mean, sometimes blue, sometimes red.
Have been blue for the longest before Trump
Yeah.
flipped it in 2016.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I remember, look, Clinton, Obama, you know, all of that.
Yeah, they all won Michigan, right?
Yes. Michigan was blue. You know,
Yeah.
Trump flipped it. Now, I will say, it's important to note, Michigan is not much different than how James Carville describes Alabama, describes Pennsylvania. He says Pennsylvania is Pittsburgh on the west, Philadelphia on the east, and Alabama in the middle.
Right.
I'll say Michigan is Benton Harbor, that's Black City, right on southwest. Saginaw, Flint,
right, Flint,
right on the east, and Mississippi. Right. Okay, the rest of the is Mississippi. but they call Michigan. I'm like, hey, we on the something. Then the pause between, hey, he's starting to. I think he might catch up in Pennsylvania. Hey, Georgia might even go. Georgia is in play.
Right.
Arizona is in play. Nevada is in. Wait a minute. So now I'm sitting. But it's emotional roller coaster, and I'm like, you know what? The reality is this. Regardless of how this thing turns out, we're gonna have work ahead of us. Now, I wanted a lighter work, which means I don't want him to win, right? Like, so and it was Saturday. I was building all of that up to say this. Saturday, they had called Michigan and Wisconsin, Pennsylvania in play, Georgia in play, Arizona in play, Nevada in play. I think he was stuck at 253. Biden had 253 electoral votes.
Right. That's right.
I started preparing for the sermon. I was reading the scriptures and the text and stuff. I was upstairs. My wife was downstairs on the AKA chapter meeting call.
Yeah.
And as I'm studying, you know, just preparing to do the sermon, the TV announced, we have breaking news. Joseph Biden had just been. I stood up and said, they called it. They called it. I ran and said, they called it. They called it. Right. So I'm like, yo, they called it. And so I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm relieved. And I'm still determined. And I said this in the sermon Sunday, and it stuck with me so much I even reposted it the next day. You might have seen it, but it's to where we've been and where we are in light of where we need to go. I said, the only thing that changes for the Hebrew people in Isaiah chapter 40 from Isaiah chapter 39, because most of the scholars say Isaiah chapter 1 through 39 has them under Assyrian exile and bondage. In chapter 40, they end up being in Babylonian exile and bondage. I said, the only thing that changed, even though they changed leadership, that was not a complete liberation. Only thing that changed was the name engraved on their chains.
Yes.
So even though the president and the president-elect have two different personalities, two different postures, two different leadership capacities, the reality is, for Black folks in this country, we still are under a system of bondage.
Yes.
We need to come to grips with the fact that 70 million people and counting, 12 million African-American males, 5.6 million African-American females marched to a ballot box and voted in a way that said racism ain't a deal breaker. That 220,000 deaths, 240,000 deaths now, by the mismanagement of this pandemic is not more important than nickels and dimes in some folks' pocketbooks.
Right.
And that a endless loop of lies and conspiracy theories don't override white nationalist mediocrity.
Yeah.
That's the world we're living in. And it's over 100,000 of these folks in Shelby County.
Of course.
So, you know,
they are.
I always angle these national trends and the national landscape of electoral politics with what it means for the 901, what it means for Memphis. And reality is, you know, we've been pushing to try to make us a more progressive city. We are, as Dr. Karanja Ajanaku of Tri-State Defender said in 2018, Memphis is moderate at best.
Yeah.
And so that dynamic that you described earlier of black folks who end up going into some of these rooms, and whether we want to call it accommodating or capitulating or compromising or shucking and jiving and cooning, you know, and I'm sure it's all great of that. The reality is we leave black folks in Memphis, especially poor black folks, on the chopping block in the name of political expediency. And I'm sick of it because it impacts the vast majority of the citizens. And I'm tired of folks talking about they believe in democracy, which means in essence majority rule, but you leave out the majority of the people in the process.
Yeah. And so you didn't cry like Van Jones when you got the news, did you?
I cried when I saw Van Jones cry because my son is 20.
Yeah.
And I know what it means to carry the weight. See, people can talk about Van in some pejorative way. And look, you got some stuff that he done said publicly. And
of course. Yeah, no doubt. But I felt him with what he said.
He said that like, hey, look, if you have been trying to prove to people that truth still matters, that ethics and decency and morality have some weight and some meaning, you know your load got lighter. So my fears was he's right. The load is a little bit lighter now. Not that I would have fought like hell even if Trump won, but damn, who wants to? How did I say this? I think I was talking to my mother about this yesterday or the day before. I'm like, you know, not that black folks don't want to have to come from behind, but I don't want to start the fourth quarter off down 40 points.
40, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
If you tell me I got the choice between a 10-point deficit or a 20 or 30-point deficit, who wouldn't take the 10-point deficit?
Exactly, every time. Yeah.
I'm admitting I'm still behind. Okay.
Right.
I'm conceding the point that this election did not give me a lead, let alone did it even make me, it didn't make me even, let alone give me a lead, right? Us a lead. But it does make the deficit a little bit smaller. And more manageable. So yeah, you know, I ain't throwing no shade at Van Jones for that one. You know, some of the other, like when I think did his first State of the Union address, and Van Jones, he just became president. He shut down. Now that's some bull. That's some
bullshit.
Yeah, I was going bullshit. Okay, But this one right here, man, I felt that, man. I cried, I cussed, I shouted, all of that stuff over the week because them emotions. But I also knew this, January 5th, January 21st, I'm coming after Biden.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's gonna be in the hot seat because he's gonna represent a system and a structure that's calculated against black thriving and black liberation. And so and let me bring it back to the 901. This is we talk about the consistency of it.
Yeah.
Everybody who knows me in terms of activism knows me and now Commissioner Tammy Sawyer are wonder twins, as some have called us, right? Like that's my sister. When she was running for mayor, hey, look, that's my sister. You know what I'm saying? She earned this, not like I just did because I felt like she was the best person for the job. I told Tammy, if you win, the day after you're sworn in, I'm coming after you.
Right.
Because you're going to be the one in the hot seat. So, people try to make it seem like it's some animus towards Strickland. I don't know Strickland as a person well enough. I don't wish no ill will on his family or nothing like that. I don't know him well enough not to like him as a person. I know about his politics.
Right. Exactly. That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
I know how he has moved as the chief administrator of this city, and the chief executive of this city. I know that. And I can make some judgment calls based upon that. And whoever else is going to succeed him until the conditions change. And so that's where I feel like we have to be collectively. And what's a shame, Champ Ron, is this. There's way too many people in Memphis and Shelby County who claim they don't like the Trump in the White House, but are okay with the Trump in the governor's mansion in Tennessee, and okay with the Trump and the Trumpites and the Trumpettes in the mayor's office or in the city council chambers or in the county commission seats or on the school board. Okay. So I ain't got no stomach for that stuff because that's hypocrisy.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you got just a lot to really break down with that because yeah, again, I ain't even. I mean, there's a lot to break down there. I mean, because yeah, you're exactly right, and it kind of hit what I was going to get to a little later on, which is that what it means for the 901, what it means for Memphis, and people that could not separate the ideology from just the character. And I think you gave a really great, beautiful analogy that's sports related in basketball, Doc, which is um being down is being down, right? But like you say, what I took that exact same approach. For me, when I heard it, having three young daughters, I said, now okay, I'm closer now, right? I'm closer now, you know what I mean? Like you
Yeah,
say, and you and I played ball. Many people listen to this, men and women who play ball, know I've been on teams we got our ass kicked, and going into that fourth quarter, like you say, down 50, ain't
yeah.
no good feeling. I've been
I'm just going out here, go through the motions.
yeah,
I don't want to quit. Yeah,
right. Everybody goes, hey man, let's just try to make this respectable. Let's start running our plays. Let's do, that mindset's different than like you say, when you go in and like you say, you down 10, you down 5, and now hey, it's a game,
yeah.
right? So now I've got an opportunity. That's what I felt with that. And that's the other thing that I was hoping to hear too, that which you gave, which is once Biden and Harris get into office, like you say, late January, the clock starts, right? So right now, you can have the speeches, you can have the rallies, things like that. But then, like you say, the clock starts, and there's some just deep rooted inherent issues in the country that, like you say, filter down to Memphis, to Shelby County,
Mm-hmm.
that really need to be addressed. And so, Doc, how do we and you and your team have kind of helped put this together with Up the Vote 901, with what I'm about to ask you, which is how do we the people, how do we support elected officials?
Mm-hmm.
'Cause again, that's I mean, God bless anybody that want to be elected official, man. That's I mean, you really putting yourself out there to to help the community, hopefully, if that's your approach. But how do we support them, and then how do we hold them accountable?
Yeah.
How do we do that? I mean, and I'm thinking about not just for the folks like yourself, but some people are listening to this they just go to work every day. They go scroll social media. They're not really, they'll be kind of half engaged in stuff if it really means something to them. But then otherwise, they're just going to leave and just say, oh, okay, Doc, them got it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's, what I mean? And a lot of people, I think, I've seen this. I think people put pressure on folks like yourself and others to kind of carry that, because it's that mentality that we need to have a Dr. King, and then everybody else just kind of ride and just, okay, when it's cool for me to be associated, let me be associated. When it ain't cool to be associated, let me be over here.
Yeah, man. And it's a challenge because of the way our society is structured. Notice I didn't say system in that regard. So since we live in a democratic republic, it makes sense at some point that you say, hey, I got somebody who has been duly elected that's going to represent my interests.
Yes.
But that's not the case when you have low turnout election after election, because whoever is represented doesn't represent the will of the majority of the people. So, I've had this conversation to a degree and regarding Mayor Strickland and so many others. And here's what I said: no elected official in Memphis or Shelby County has a mandate, which is to say, none of them can claim that they represent the will of the majority of the people, even in their district, because we don't get 50% turnout in local elections. So what you get, Strickland has won with, no lie, less than 11% of the electorate.
Yes,
he wins.
That's true. That is fact.
Of a vote that has about 28% turnout. You dealing with less than 50, I'll be conservative. You dealing with less than 15% of the electorate. You ain't got no mandate.
Right.
You ain't representing the will of the majority of the people. You are, and I don't blame any elected official, Strickland, Lee Harris, nobody. I don't blame them for catering to who they feel their demographic is that got them elected.
Okay, that's natural. Yeah, I mean,
So what we have to do, Chamron, is number one, educate our people on the issues that they say are important to them. This has been our method of organizing for the last several years. We don't, Up the Vote 901 does not organize around individuals. We organize around issues. We do not organize around personalities. We organize around policies. What is important to people? When we did the Memphis People's Agenda, which was the result of a survey that over 2,200 people in Memphis and Shelby County took about issues that were important to them, we knew that there were going to be things in that agenda that I don't like. There's some stuff in there that I don't like, but it ain't my agenda. It's the people's agenda. And we did a survey that got more traction than the majority of surveys that have been pushed by Fortune 500 companies, and we had zero funding to back us up. So, number one, you support candidates by getting up on the issues, seeing where they stand in response to your issues. And I know that this is something that requires sacrifice because our society is structured the way it is. It does take time, right? So you do that, and because you can't hold nobody accountable to something you don't know nothing about.
Exactly.
Even if you're going to trust community leaders, you also have to be knowledgeable about where they stand and how to support them. Now, you can simply just try to support people with your financial contribution, but who don't want to know where their money is going and how they money?
You want to know what's going. Everybody that you think of, like I told my wife about this, like, just to jump in and kind of you go with that point, Doc. When I remember when the banks first started those PACs, right? Those political action, it could be, that type thing. And I remember the way they positioned that, man. And they made it seem like, we go support candidates that are going to support the banking industry and allow us to hire more people and do this, blah, 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 blah. And I remember my guy, if you don't mind saying his name, man, my guy Fred Booker and I looked at each other, man. We was like, man, this ain't some bullshit, man. They were asking for our money. They ain't gonna tell us where it's going to, right? And like you say, the difference in it, to your point that you made, is it was more centered around supporting candidates. It wasn't around issues.
Right.
It was around candidates that were going to support the things they cared about for their business.
There you go.
Right. That corporate piece. And this was probably, 2004, 2005, sometime in that range. And it just blew my mind. I'm sitting, they got us all in this meeting, man. We're all, all the, kind of bank leaders, branch managers, all that are in this meeting and conference room. And they made this whole hoopla about it, Doc. Like, just a clown show, and we there for like 2-3 hours, and they passing out the thing, and they're giving out prizes to folks. And you had Negroes giving it, taking money out their check, agreeing to take percentages and all. They don't know where it's going. Don't know what what they support or nothing. Just, a lot of it was just to get the prize that they give it.
And the difficult part about accountability is if you don't have the knowledge, you won't know how to hold somebody accountable.
Right.
And so, like you said, they don't know where their money is going. So they don't even know what the result is. So how you going to hold it? And what had tended to happen, this is why I used to talk to pastors about, instead of doing some endorsement of the candidate, we need to empower the voter base with the knowledge that they need so that they can make a decision for themselves. Because if I stand up before Abyssinian and say, hey, y'all, I need y'all to vote for Champeron. He running for school board. And that's all I say. Let's just say they do go out and vote for you. And then you get caught up in the scandal. They're not going to say, we need to, they're going to come to me and say, hey, yo boy.
Hey, your boy down there. They got your boy hemmed up.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Man, what your boy doing?
You told us to vote for. Yeah.
But when you, this is why we have been saying for the longest that Memphis and Shelby County does not have a voter registration problem. We got a voter education problem. We got a voter engagement problem. So, one of the things we were doing in this election cycle, and actually our next one, if I could plug it here, is on November 23rd at 6:00. We're going to do our Let's Talk Politics post-election session. So we were doing these Let's Talk Politics sessions to just give people opportunity to just get some more information about the political landscape, issues that are important to them, policies that are connected to it. And we also did these voter empowerment symposiums over the past months based upon the Memphis People's Agenda. We did a symposium on crime and public safety. We did a symposium on labor and wages. We'll do some more over the next few months too. But I definitely want to encourage everybody to just, similar to how we chopping it up about what the election meant and what do we do now, and what's the best path forward on a local level and what that means nationally. This is what we'll have a more thorough and in-depth and structured discussion about on November the 23rd. And it's a virtual meeting. So, I even share the link in the
please do
in this piece too. And hopefully you could push us forward. But
absolutely.
Like we have to get people more knowledgeable and conscious about what's happening and how it is impacting them. So even when they try to say, I don't really do politics, well, that ain't necessarily true because you paying taxes, nigga.
Right.
Buying groceries.
You do it every day.
Buying food. You buying, look, that Coogee sweater, okay?
Right.
and so it's like you gotta know where money goes. And if you sitting out of the process, you're letting 15 to 20% of the people decide what's happening with 100% of the resources.
Yeah.
So want people to be more involved. And here's one more thing I would have to add about this. I wrote this down when you first started talking about it.
Yeah.
We can talk about what the next 4 years, we talking about what it's going to look like next week. And that folks are already talking about who going to run against Biden in 2024.
24, right. They already gearing up.
They angling right now. Right now. Look, the man ain't even sworn in yet. And they already, here's a quick lesson for those who may not be in the know. And this is why it's important, because sometimes we act like things that we don't know can't be known. It can be known. And if you don't know it, that's okay. Just admit that you don't know it and then try to figure out how to find out, or allow yourself to be taught before you go promoting these baseless theories and conspiracies and all of this other stuff. So people try to talk about what the Black caucus hasn't done nationally, right? Or try to talk about what Black politicians hadn't done, so on and so forth. What Obama didn't do, so on and so forth. Look, anything after 2010, you really could chalk it up, because when the Tea Party swept through the Congress, then it hamstrung Obama. Right. But then the question would be, so how did the Tea Party swing through, and how did that get set up? The day Obama got elected, Newt Gingrich, Newt Gingrich, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, names that we should know by now, right? Met in the room. Mitch McConnell came out and did a press conference the next day and said, our number one priority is not to make sure Americans got health care or decent jobs. Or our number one priority, he said, is to make sure he is a one-term president. Right.
That is fact. Now, and you can find that anywhere, NYB, anywhere you look, you'll find that exact press conference.
Google is your friend. Now, see, we won't listen to these press conferences or these interviews, and then we'll say stuff about the media this and the media that, but we hadn't been doing our homework. And some of us ain't up for it. Okay, find someone who you know is, and chop it up with them when y'all drinking your coffee or your bourbon, right? Chop it up with them when y'all out to lunch. You know what I'm saying? Because this stuff, at some point, man, my pastor used to preach about that. Man, we're gonna entertain ourselves to death. I'm not saying you should watch entertainment. I do. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But at some point, if you ain't feeding your soul, if you ain't feeding your mind, then people are gonna exploit your body.
Yes.
So the other thing is Mitch McConnell. I asked people, I was posting this when people talking stuff, when Cube's Contract for Black America came out and he was trying to say black congressman. I said, look, man, why do they call Mitch McConnell the Grim Reaper? Anybody know? And most folks don't know. They call him that because they say that's where good bills go to die. What does that mean? That means people been putting forth some good bills. He won't pass the bill. He kills the bill. Who's been putting these bills together? What's in these bills? Oh, damn, black folks. Black politicians, they've been putting 300 plus bills together. Oh, see, but if you don't know the ins and outs, then you won't understand that this is happening. And then you buy the talking points from some groups that, as I said earlier, are already planning 4 years, 10 years, 20 years ahead. There's folks planning right now and have been planning for months on how they gonna unify Shelby County and Memphis municipal government.
Yeah.
And all they doing now is surveying the land to see who they can manipulate and pick out so that they can put these talking points. When the reality is this, they are shook because folks like Michael and Easter Thomas and J.B. Smiley and
Right.
Martavis Jones have said, and Rhonda Logan and Jamila Swears have said, hey, we know that we should represent what's in the best interest for our constituents, which are Black folks in Memphis, and we're going to stand together. And every now and then we could pull Patrice in, we could pull Cheyenne in, we could pull Ford in. But at the end of the day, they have, by proxy, a political majority on the city council.
Yes.
White folks seen that and say, oh my, Black folks might actually come together.
Spooky,
you know what we need to do? We need to dilute the Black political power in Memphis, in Shelby County. We need to unify the government. And you know what? Strickland can't run for another term for city mayor. But if we
can't, you're right.
But if, so that's the stuff we're planning on. So part of the way you support candidates is by getting knowledgeable on the issues, and you hold them accountable by recognizing what's going on. And whenever they don't stand in alignment with what you feel like your interests are, you got to call them to the carpet. And calling them to the carpet sometimes means doing to them what ultimately happened to Berlin Boyd when Mike Easter Thomas helped to vote him out.
Right. Yeah. I've always said that as people, we are, I've given the analogy, Doc, that we are hiring managers. Yeah. So we talked about on your job, right? So if you're a hiring manager on your job, you're over a division, right? You're responsible for the people that work, with you and under you, however you want to term it, right? And so no hiring manager, if you hire somebody, you hire me, for a job, at church, wherever, you hire me, right? You expect me to do a job, right? They're basic things you expect of me.
Right.
You expect me, if I need to be there 7 o'clock, you expect me to be there a little before 7 o'clock, right? That ain't nothing. That's non-negotiable. That ain't something you gonna entertain no conversation with me too long about, right? There's gonna be job performance that you expect. If I don't meet that performance, right, you don't say, well, God, man, there's nothing I'm gonna be able to do with Ron. He just kind of, we just kind of let him flap in the breeze. I know he get paid every week, but we just go, I hired him, so you just kind of, you're not taking that defeatist attitude. Ain't gonna be too long before them conversations with you go get tougher and tougher and tougher to the point where you go say, hey, listen, Ron, this ain't working, Doc. We got to go.
You're right. Here's the thing: the scenario that you described puts people in a position where it's more easy for them to understand their power. See, because when you talk about somebody as a hiring manager, people understand manager in terms of power. Most Black folks don't conceive of themselves as having any political power. This is part of what we're working on.
Right.
So they don't see themselves. And let's be honest. One of the differences is that in the political environment, you have several hiring managers that have to agree on a hiring process. And so it's not as simple as, I don't like what Ron is doing, he out. I didn't hire Ron by myself. I hired Ron along with a group. So what's helpful, and this is what we are doing with Up to Vote 901, is building a block, a voting block, building a base of people, building a voting block. See, y'all might say something to me individually, but if you know it's 50 of us, if it's 500 of us, if like the Memphis People's Convention had about 900 people show up at that mug, right? So now you can play with that if you want to, but I don't know no politician who locally says, no, I don't care about them 900 votes.
Right. 900 people, 900 people.
Right, which we hope to get closer to 1,500 this time, right? So, hey, at the end of the day, when we realize that if we can unify, or I ain't gonna say unify, but organize ourselves around some of these issues and some of these policies, then you realize you kind of sort of shrink the gap between people who are running on one side of the aisle or the other, because they know at the end of the day, the majority of the people say they want this.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Doc, as we kind of wrap up, man, because this has been informative, man. We get comments on, I've seen the folks on YouTube. I promise I'm gonna shout y'all out. I appreciate y'all with y'all comments and stuff. Them thumbs up stuff, them folks on YouTube. Definitely shout out to the folks there on Facebook. How can people connect with you? For folks that aren't connected with you, how can they do so? How can they learn more about, your various, initiatives, things that you're engaging, here in the community?
Well, just like most folks, we try to keep it out there on social media so that, like Tupac said, I might be worldwide, but baby, I ain't hard to find.
Right.
So Earle J. Fisher on Facebook, at Pastor Earle, Earle on Twitter, at Pastor _ Earle on Instagram, Abyssinian Missionary Baptist Church on Facebook, Up the Vote 901 on Facebook, ABC
Yeah.
Ministries #1 on Instagram, at Up the Vote 901 on Instagram. ABC Ministries #1 at gmail.com if you want to email us about the church stuff, or
Yeah.
Up the Vote 901 at gmail.com if you want to talk about the political organizing pieces. Shoot us
Yeah.
something. But again, and I'll put I'll send you the graphic and stuff, and you can share, and the
Yeah.
registration for the
Please do. Please
23rd
do.
Let's Talk Politics post-election session, November 23rd, 6 p.m. We'll be doing it on Zoom, talking about all of these things and so much more. So thanks,
Yeah.
Champ Ron, man. I appreciate you providing me with this opportunity, man. It's good to chop it up with you per usual. We have to do this again. And
Yeah, no doubt.
You better not do another 220 episodes for you run me back, bro.
Yeah, next time, man. See, I got my Biggie Coogee on today, man. I'm about to come with what podcast?
You gotta
Podcast
do
so many
Tupac
different styles. Yeah. Yeah, I gotta have the bandana right. But what Death Row Tupac gotta have some outfits, man. That's kind of, you know what I mean? It was a little different, than pre-Death Row Pac. I'm about to go pre-Death Row Pac on that, man. I don't know, some of them leather joints he had, man. I ain't gonna come in there with you on that, man.
No,
some of them
I don't want the leather vest like he had on the California Love video with him.
Yeah, nah, man. I ain't going that far. Nah, man. I have to go Pac, like above the rim Pac or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but no, Dr. Earle Fisher is our guest today, MYB, man. This has really been an honor for me, brother. In all seriousness, I learn a lot anytime I hear you speak. Like my brother Mo was saying, I think we all learn a lot, and again, the accountability is on us as we go forward. No matter, it's not about just how you feel and that sort of thing, man. You'll learn the facts. If I can take anything from what Doc said, educate yourself and get around the right kind of people. To educate yourself, and that does all the difference. And none of us have all the answers, right? And that's why we can all work together. So, man, Doc, I appreciate it, man. Best wishes to you personally and professionally, Doc. And yeah, we definitely gonna do this again. And it's gonna be long before episode 420 or whatever.
I want to say keep up the good work, man. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a joy and a privilege. I look forward to doing it again. And thanks to everybody who tuned in and checked it out.
Yep, no doubt. Appreciate you, Doc.
Peace, man.
Yeah, much love. Peace. All right, MYB, that was Dr. Earle Fisher joining us today. He's the senior pastor at Abyssinian Baptist Church here in Memphis, Tennessee. I invite you all to check him out there at the church. There's going to be links in the show notes for you to be able to do so. Up the Vote 901, all the various initiatives. And, this is a great opportunity. We're up on a great opportunity as we go into 2021. To get just a little bit better. And I always say this at the end of the show, we want to be a little bit better for ourselves, a little bit better for our families, and a little bit better for our communities. So this is Champ Ron, the Mind Your Business podcast, episode 219. You can check us out, champronbrooks.com. I've got a new administrator that's helping me work the website. So definitely appreciate her contributions and that sort of thing. Hope that you, again, learn something today that you could take with you through the rest of your walk. So listen, just be great, and there's opportunity all around. It's all around.